Hi, thanks for joining our video on generic enquiries. In this video, you will learn more about GI, which is also called as generic enquiries. We'll show you how to create a simple GI, and we'll take that table and add another related table to the GI, and also show you how to add some more features that you can really leverage in Acumatica. The generic enquiries are very powerful in the system. You can also use them for reporting tools. For instance, you can create dashboards using GIs. You can create reports using the report designer. And you can also extend this to external applications like Tableau or Power BI through the OData. So let's get started. Alright, so we talked about the GI. So let me refresh my screen here. What you see here is a list of all invoices which I was able to access through sales order invoices, or I can click on list of sales orders, or if I want to go ahead and click on list of all customers or vendors. So what that really is in Acumatica is a generic enquiry. You're trying to enquire the system by saying, show me a list of all customers, or show me a list of all vendors, or show me all sales orders that were created last week. So anything that you make a request, kind of you can call it as an enquiry. You're inquiring about something. So you will notice that all of these things are built in some of the screens by Acumatica. But you can create your own generic enquiries and be able to pull relational data. So today we're going to take a look at a scenario in terms of building a GI. My scenario is, for instance, I want to add shipping information to the sales invoice GI for a specific customer that wants to receive statements. So how do I do this, right? So if you really look at this, I've highlighted some of these fields here. Shipping. I want some shipping information, and I want to tie that to the sales invoice for a specific customer. So the first thing that I'm going to do is going to create a new generic enquiry for sales invoice table. So let's see how that looks in the GI. Now, if I come down to Acumatica, I can go down to more items, customizations, and generic enquiries. Or I can also go to the universal search and start typing generic enquiries, and you can also get to that. So that's how you can navigate and find the GI tool. So once I'm here, I want to create a new GI to a sales invoice table and pull all the invoices. Alright, so I have created a GI with giving a title. In this case, I've said SI-shipment-status, and the title name is invoices shipment statuses. So I have saved this GI in the workspace called receivables. So if you go down to receivables, I have taken this workspace and I have put that enquiry into the enquiry section or the category. So you have the liberty to put this GI anywhere you want, depending on what type of GI you're building. And I also said make this visible on the UI. So that's how you start creating a new generic enquiry, and the system gives you a new GI ID. There's a screen ID for this. So this can also be changed. If you really want to change the ID, you can go and change screen ID, but we'll do that for another day. So once I added this GI, now I want to say which table or object I'm going to pull this data from. So I can come in here and I can start typing AR invoices and say I'm going to pull all the invoices from this particular table or an object which is AR invoice. You'll notice that there's several other invoices as well, which are other data points that are data views, right? So that you might find more than one of the same name. So how do you know what table am I actually calling from, and what is the right table to use? So let me just show you how easy is that to figure that out, right? So if you go down to invoices and let me open up an existing invoice, and when I'm in the invoice, you will notice this screen has its own screen ID, and this is representing the invoice in Acumatica. If you go down to customizations, inspect element, click on that and highlight any field on the screen, it gives you the data class. So I know that this data is coming from this particular object or from this particular table AR invoice. And the field that I highlighted was called reference number, which is REF number. So that's how I know that I'm supposed to look at this table AR invoice. So let's hit cancel. Now I want to pull all invoices and then I want to link that to the freight or the shipment table. So here again, I'm going to come down to customization, inspect element, or I can just use my keyboard shortcut, Control Alt and click. So if I click Control Alt, it will give me the data class to use is SO freight detail. So now I know that I need to link the invoice table and the SO freight detail to get the shipment information I need on each of these invoices. Keep in mind, in Acumatica, you can have one shipment to a invoice, or you might have multiple shipments that you might have delivered for the same invoice. So you can have one-to-one or you can have one-to-many, right? So with that said, let me go back to my GI. So I was able to pull my AR invoice. And once I pick that up, you can give a name to it or let the system give any alias, which is in this case AR invoice. So that's my first attempt of creating a GI for a specific table. Hit save, and then we'll also go and show you how to add fields to it. So from this table, I might go in here and say plus sign. I want to choose the object AR invoice, and then I want to show certain fields like the reference number, the doc date, customer ID, maybe another field. So depending on which fields you want, you can actually choose. Let's say I want to choose branch ID as well, and I can add those fields and continue to add further. And once I'm done and I'm happy with it, I can click on view inquiry. The view inquiry now shows the GI with the data that you just built. It has all the reference numbers, date, customer, and the branch. And it is showing you some, created in 2013, 2019, and different dates. So we'll start to clean the data, how it should look. So this is just how you can create GI for a single table and add the fields you need to be able to create your first GI. As you look at the GI, it also shows you some warnings. In this case, the system is telling me that, hey, there is no sort order, wanting to sort these records, and it's recommended. And try to minimize the warnings as much as you can. So let's go ahead, because I can see that it is showing me all invoices, but it's not really sorted by the date. So I really want to have all of this data sorted by the date, doc date in this case. And again, if you don't know what the field is to use the inspect element, and I can go in and say I want this particular date, and this happens to be doc date. So that's how I know what field to use. So I come down here and I'll say it's descending because I want the latest one, and go all the way till the end. So now if I sort it, it sorts anything that's just created last week or so, or last 2 weeks. So I can see all of this data. So you can start to add other sort criteria. You can do grouping. I'll come down to relations and parameters as we go through this session. All right, so we added a single table. Now I want to add the shipment table or the freight table and pull this information. How do I do that? Well, in the previous version, you could actually pick the table from or the object from here, and you need to go and define your relationship, how those tables are related, what's the primary key, what's the secondary key, and whether you want an inner join or a left join. That's too much, right? So in the latest version, they have made it much easier for end users to quickly add the related table. So highlight this and click on add related table. Now the system says the parent table happens to be AR invoice. What is the other table you want to link with? In this case, I typed in freight, so I know it is SO freight detail. That's the table that we want to link. So I can click on that, and the system comes back and shows me that, hey, these are the tables that are linked by these fields. On the SO freight detail, I have doc type and ref number. Those are the key fields that needs to be linked to your AR invoice table as well. So you can select that related table. That is, you might have more than one linking in the system. So if you see sometimes multiple values, click the one that you really need in terms of linking it. So highlight that and then say select related table. So it's going to select and build the relationship for you. So in this case, it's telling you that I'm going to join the AR invoice table, inner join, to the freight table on these fields. Keep in mind, you need to know a little bit about how tables need to be joined depending on the scenario, right? If you want to do inner join, left join, outer join, or full join, there are a lot of different other ways of joining the table to pull the data that you need. In this scenario, I know really well that I have an invoice and I might have one shipment or I might have multiple shipments. So I could do one-to-one and one-to-many and pull the data. So I would most likely go with, most of the time the system will tell you it's inner join, right? So I can click that and say now add. So by doing so, the system adds the table for you. And not only that, it also creates the relationship between the parent table, the child table, with the join being inner join, and also the fields that needs to be linked. So go ahead and hit save. So that's how you can add a related table. You have the ability to do that from the table screen or in the relations. You can add continuously. You can add other tables and link the related tables and be able to show the value that you need. So as we added this table, you notice that there was a join type called inner join. So the system always most likely picks the inner join, but you have the option to select different joins. Now you might be wondering, what are these joins? What does it do if I change it to left versus right versus full? So again, do a Google search and find out a little bit about inner join versus outer join. There is one blog article that I just ran into. I thought of showing this with you. Guys, as you see here, that is table 1, there's a table 2. If you link these two tables by the join, then you get certain results. By doing inner join, you're linking the first table to second table and saying, you know what, if you find kiwis or onions in the table 1, and if you can go to the table 2 and find the same kiwis and onions, then get me the quantity. By doing the inner join, if it finds a match, it does pull it. In this case, there are tomatoes in table 1, there are no tomatoes in table 2, or broccoli, vice versa, right? So the system only brings kiwis and onions by doing the concept of inner join. Now if you do left outer join, that means I'm telling the system, you know what, no matter what's there here, kiwis, onions and tomatoes, it may not be in table 2, but still give me something about tomatoes. So I did get the answer or result as kiwis, onions and tomatoes, the price from this table, but I couldn't get a quantity because there are no tomatoes sold, or probably it's not stored in the table 2. So that's what the left outer join does. The right outer join does the reverse of that. It gets you the broccoli, but there's no dollar value for broccoli because it's not there in this table. And the full outer join is like, regardless of what, show me everything. So now you get all the different vegetables and fruits probably from both the tables. So that's just a crash course on inner joins, outer joins, full joins, and that's what we're going to be using. And by adding the related table, it mostly picks the inner join, and that should do the job. So now we have created this. So let's go to my results grid since we added the second table. So now I can select the second table, which is SO freight detail, and I can pull any field that I want to see. So let's say I want to fill freight amount. Alright, so I've added few fields here from the invoice table as well as from the freight table. So let's go ahead and view this inquiry. So if I refresh my screen, you will see now not only I got the invoice numbers, the customer and the date, but also start to get the relevant data from the freight table showing you, ship via, what's the shipment number, what's the weight of it, and what type of document it is. So this is how you can link two tables within Acumatica in a relational database system and be able to pull the data, right? So now we can start to build a few features around this. For instance, I'm looking at all the invoices from all different types of customers. I want to be able to narrow down and say, show me only that customers pertaining to ABC Studios. So I can highlight this and I can do Shift F, which is filter, and I can see all my shipments and invoices for this customer. But I want to take it to the next step. I want to add a parameter on the top so I can select the customer that I want to see and be able to see only their invoices and shipments. So if I want to do that, I have to go in to a generic inquiry and use the parameters option to do that. So let's go ahead and create a new parameter, and which is to filter the records by the customer. So I'm going to click on the plus sign. So I've gone ahead and I picked and given a name called customer. I've chosen the schema, which is the customer ID, and the display name is what it shows you on the GI. So let's hit save and go ahead and refresh now the same GI. So now you'll notice that there is select customer and then a selector showing you all list of customers. And I was able to do that by seeing what the schema that it's supposed to use. So it's supposed to use the customer ID schema field, so it knows that it's type of selector, and this is just the caption what it needs to show. I've given the parameter a name called customer, then that's unique, and as you see, it's a required field as well. So now if I choose the value, nothing happens. It doesn't filter because whatever I've chosen the value, I've not tied that to this to start filtering actively. So let's do that as well. So if you go down back here, I've added the parameter, which is great. If I want to make it as a required field, I can do that, but let's not do that. Let's go to the conditions. So here I'm going to write a condition saying if I select the value, then that grid should reflect and refresh and show me only those that match that criteria. So I've gone ahead and I've selected the condition to be AR invoice, and the customer ID is equal to the parameter that I had created in the parameters tab. I'm going to use this name as the condition to be equal to for the customer ID. So that basically it means filter and show me. If I choose a specific customer, then show me all those customers' invoices and shipments. So go ahead and save and refresh. Then you will see now the generic inquiry with the selector, and I can select, for instance, ABC Studios. So now you get to see all ABC Studios customer, or let's say Bank of America. In this case, there's no records. So if you choose another customer which has records, then it starts to filter and show you the number of records you have pertaining to that invoice and shipment. If I knock off something, and now it doesn't show anything because it's asking you to pick a customer, so I can filter it. So if you wanted to see, I want to see our list of customers still, even if I don't select one, then you may want to go back here and add another conditions in customer ID, let's say it's empty, and save and refresh. Now it gives you everything, and then based on the criteria, you can now filter and say show me art cages versus any other customer. So that's how you link two different tables through the add related table. Let the system create the join for you, add a parameter and define its conditions or criteria. And this conditions criteria could be user defined, in the sense it's up to you what you want to control, how you want to show. Maybe you want to say show me only the invoices as of this year and not previous years, or maybe last 2 years. So you can define all the conditions here in the system. You can decide to add a sort sequence. You can group if you really need to group and get the total count of dollar value or number of shipments, anything of that sort. You can do the grouping and define what data that you want to see in the grid, and that's what is going to get exposed. There's several other features in terms of the entry points where you can do mass updates, mass delete. You can also do navigation links. I'm going to quickly show you some navigations that you can link in the system. where it creates a side panel and shows you all relevant data pertaining to the record that you chose. So I'm going to quickly do that and refresh the screen. So what I've done here is I added a link to the customer's profile, which is the AR 303000 screen ID, and I selected the Windows mode as the side panel. When you do select side panel, then you do get additional information that you can fill. You can provide an icon to it, you can give a name to that, and then link the fields pertaining to which field, which is account CD, is linked to the customer ID. So by doing that and hitting save, and let's refresh the screen, you will now notice that the generic inquiry, which is showing you all the list of invoices based on the filtering. Now I'll take the filter out. Now you will see a side panel. So if I highlight this particular record and click on the side panel, it brings up the customer profile, because it's going to pick the value from here. ABC Studio passes that value to the navigation screen onto the side panel and says, you know what, load me ABC Studio's customer profile. So similarly, if I go down to, let's say, another record, this starts to refresh. As I'm navigating to other records, it keeps showing you the customer pertaining to the record I am in. In this case, it's Westwood. It pulls up Westwood. So if I continue to elevation or this record, then it starts to refresh. So these two are linked now as one of the side panels, and that linking is happening through this definition that we have given the navigation parameters, saying, you know what, if you find the account code, then link that to customer ID, based on which the side panel is refreshing as well. So I can continue to add more side panels here. Maybe I want to show shipments, the shipment document itself. So search on shipment and find the document that you want to show. In this case, it is this transactions. I'm going to pick this one, and I have the ability to click on it to open up in the same tab or a new tab or a pop-up window. But if I want it on the side panel, then I can choose side panel, hit save. You will see a new icon. So I can choose that, and I can say shipments and choose the shipment number, and you need to pass the parameters. So you need to find the shipment number, and if I find a straight detailed or shipment number, I can link to that. And now if I go back and refresh my GI, I should see, for instance, highlight this one. I can click on the shipments tab now, and it should bring that particular shipment number, which is 4400. So as I navigate to other ones, it starts loading those shipment numbers. So that's how you can use the GI to have navigations as side panels, or link them so that it's hyperlinked, so they can click on certain information. It will open up in a new tab, or it can be opened as a pop-up window, or it could be a side panel. So there you have it, folks. What we did in today's session was create a new generic inquiry from scratch on an invoice table, display a few fields, and we linked another table, which is the freight. In this case, I could have also linked the shipment table itself directly. In this case, I'm just trying to show you, if you have it on an invoice and you want to pull relevant data, you could, but you can also pull the shipment table and show the shipment status, the tracking number. All of those could be done with the relationships in terms of adding a different table. We added some parameter here, trying to show you how you can add filters and set your conditions and criteria for the data that you want to pull through the GI, the sort sequence, and the fields that you want to show. I haven't gone into the depth of this in terms of how I can do row style, how I can do fields, and how do I do coloring of all the fields, how I can do aggregate function in terms of being able to sum up the total value, dollar value, or trying to show you something different. So you can do quite a lot of things with the GI. I also touched on the navigation, how to add the side panels and link endless screens on the same GI. So all of this you can build. So now you have a good understanding of how to start a GI and how you can start exploring different relationship in the system and pulling relevant data that matches to your criteria that you want, right? Hope this helps. I'm going to make a couple more videos on generic inquiries, which will be advanced level ones. So this should get you guys started. Thank you.